Hi, this is Megan, and in this video, I'm going to be walking you through the steps on how to make this bold chevron double page layout. So you can see here, this layout features these nice 3 bold chevron stripes across the middle of the layout. This is a fairly easy layout to put together, but I'm going to walk you through some of the steps here in the directions. There's a few insights I want to be able to give you that are a little bit more detailed maybe than I was able to type out in the written part. So if you haven't already printed out these instructions, I recommend you have those available to kind of be looking at while I'm doing the video here, and you can maybe make a few notes or such. So if you have a chance to print this out, go ahead and pause the video, print it out, and then come back and finish watching the video. And that hopefully will just give you a little bit more confidence when putting this layout together. So the first steps in this this design is to go ahead and to make these chunky chevrons. So to do that, you're going to need strips of 2-inch by 12-inch pieces of paper. So it's a 2-inch wide. It would be a full 12 inches, or you can make it actually from smaller pieces if you want, but it needs to be 2 inches wide. And you're going to go ahead and fold that 2 inches in half so that you have a 1-inch folded strip. And then using your trimmer, on this 12-inch trimmer, you see we have the 45-degree angle line. You would go ahead and initially cut off the end here to go ahead and start that 45-degree cut. I have my folded edge against the 45-degree line. And then when you're ready to start making your chevrons, they are 1.5 inches long, wide. So you would come here lining up here at this 1.5 inch mark on the opposite side here. And that is all detailed in steps 1 through 4 of the directions. You're going to need about 24 to 25 of these chunky chevrons to make the overall background design. I was able to use, I think, this lower piece down here in the corner is used up here also to fill in a couple areas where it overlapped. So about 24 will work. You can mix and match the colors. I used 4 different pieces of paper, so I had to make, I think I ended up having to cut a total of 5 or 6 strips. So just kind of play around with it a little bit and get all those chevrons cut, so you'll end up with the nice chunky chevrons. So the next part of the layout is to go ahead and you're going to use a pencil and a ruler or a straight edge to mark some guidelines. I'm going to show you how to mark your background papers with some lines. They're going to help you place these chevrons accurately so you can have a nice straight, it's all set on a 45-degree angle, and so it crosses evenly of both pages. So we'll go ahead and get started there. I used a light background paper. I used the Art Nouveau collection. The white background paper in there was great. It kind of has a real low tone to it, and it worked perfect for this. I'm going to be using just some white cardstock here to demonstrate for you so you can see the lines I'm putting on. So one thing I do reference in the directions is I definitely talk about the left page versus the right page. So we're going to start on the left page. So I'm starting now at step 6. I've grabbed my left side page. And the first step I need to do is I need to go ahead and I need to draw a line from 1.5 inches. I'm in my lower right-hand corner of my left page. I'm going to come up here to 1.5 inches and over here to 1.5 inches. And then I'm going to use a straight edge. So I'm using 1.5 inches as my reference. And I'm going to use my straight edge or a ruler to connect those things. And I'm drawing a very bold, dark pencil line. You're going to want to use a very light pencil line, something that you can erase. So you can see here, you will have a line that goes across that lower right-hand corner of your left page. The next step for step 7 is I'm going to come in from the top, the top right of the left side page. I'm going to come down 1.5 inches And then at the lower left-hand corner, I'm going to come in from the left 1.5 inches. And then I will use my straight edge. I have the 18-inch ruler here, which is super handy. If you don't have one, put it on your wish list. You can get them from Amazon. And a nice bold line across there. I'm using the bold line. You're going to want to use a light pencil line, but I'm using a bold line so you can see it. So there you can see. I now have this. These are my guides for placing my chevrons. So my left side page is done. I'm going to set it to the side. I'm going to grab my right page. So my right page, I'm going to use my left page here to kind of show you. My right page, I'm basically going to not necessarily mirror, but I'm going to be using the same, continuing these lines up the page on the right-hand side. So my right page, I'm now on step 8. Step 8, I'm going to be working with my right page. So this is the right page. I'm up here in my upper left. I'm going to come in 1.5 inches from the left, and I'm going to come down 1.5 inches, and I'm going to go ahead and mark that diagonal using a light pencil line. I'm using a dark one so you can see it. There's my 1.5 inches to 1.5 inches, and then I'm going to, for step 9, I'm going to work over here in my, actually I'm going to come down here to my lower left of my right page, and I'm going to mark in, I'm going to come up 1.5 inches, because look over here, I'm grabbing my left page really quick just to show you. I'm crossing the line at 1.5 inches from the bottom, and I'm going to complete my chevron up here at 1.5 inches from the upper right. And I'll go ahead and connect those. So you can see now I have that nice, you can see where I'm going to be putting those chevrons. So my pencil lines are really dark so that you can kind of get an idea. Now, one of the tips I put here, because I knew I was going to have chevrons that were actually going to span my border here. And I didn't want to have to cut them ahead of time and try to figure out how they were spaced on there. So one of the things I ended up doing was I used some Post-it notes to kind of lock my two pieces of paper together. So line them up, make sure they're nice and flush with each other at the top and the bottom. And then I used a Post-it note across here at the top and at the bottom. So that way, when I started putting my chevrons into place, I knew I was going to get to the point where I was going to cross that threshold. And I wanted to make sure that my papers weren't going to slide apart. So when you're placing your first chevron, I went ahead down here at the bottom and I lined it up, my first chevron, flush against the bottom here, but trust your pencil lines. Trust the angle here of your pencil line versus the angle of your chevron. So you're really going to want to make sure flush here at the bottom, but then make sure that you're staying on that pencil line. And each one of these chevrons is very much trust the pencil line. Take your time putting those pencil lines into place and then trust the pencil lines as you're laying your chevrons out. You will want to have a little bit of a gap between each of these chevrons as you place them. You can imagine, like if you were tiling, we call it a grout line. And you're going to have a grout line of about 3/16 of an inch. I would not worry about being super picky about that. Just kind of keep that reference in mind. Try to keep your spacing even. The reason I recommend the 3/16 of an inch is when you start laying these out across the entire width, your spacing will work out so that your spacing between the rows is about 3/16 of an inch. That's how these outer guidelines are sized. so that you can have 3/16 here and 3/16 between these chevrons. So when you're putting this together, you're going to lay your first row will be this row right here. Lay this one down first. And then in step 12, I say after applying all of the right side row, you're going to come over here to the left side and you're going to put this row in place. And the reason is because you have a guideline here to help you line those up. And then your final row will actually be this center row because you can then center these pieces between the two outer rows. So I went one direction with my chevrons on these outside rows and then went the opposite way down the middle. You could do it all 3 rows in the same direction. There's some flexibility there. So choose a pattern that works well for you. So I used repositionable adhesive. It made it easy for me if I needed to move some things around. When you're applying and you're crossing this threshold here, this the page break, use lots of adhesive in these areas where the chevrons cross over, because you're going to see, like, I had this tiny little tip here, I had a tiny little tip there. So just watch out for those areas where you're crossing the boundary. Use a liberal amount of adhesive in those areas. When you're all done, your pages are going to be pretty much stuck together. You're going to have to clean up your top row here and your bottom row here. And once you clean up those edges with some scissors, you'll be able to feed the 2 pieces that are still stuck together. You'll be able to put those into your 12-inch trimmer or use a pair of scissors and just cut along this line here. So make sure when you're using your, if you use the 12-inch trimmer, that you take the time to go ahead and use those sight guides to make sure that you're lined up correctly. If you feel more comfortable, just use a pair of scissors, but just take the time to get those pages separated from each other. So the other point I want to make is in step 14, I talk about cutting the 1/4-inch border strips that I used here. This was just a nice little detail. The corners of this layout were kind of bland or plain once I got done just putting the nice bold stripes on there. So what I did is I just cut some thin strips. I've overlaid them. So you'll use 4 full-size strips, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then that 5th one that you cut, you're going to actually piece it in these smaller sections. And then you'll have, once you get the background done, now you have some, you can just start figuring out what's going to work for you to put on for your photos. I chose just a pretty basic photo arrangements using some 4x6 placeholder mats. So I just have some navy 4x6 mats. Then I went ahead and I got put into place here. So just using some, like I said, the navy looks really pretty with this. You could choose the dark sea green, go with whatever really just works with your photos. You could use some of the tonal pattern. The tonal pattern I used here is actually the darker of the, it has the bold print on the back side is the, nope, sorry. It's the smaller print. It almost has like those little yellow sunflowers. So this print right here, the back side of it is that really dark, kind of evergreen greenish color. And that's what I used to make my strips here. So they were just a little bit of a darker tone than what you found here in the stripes. So I would just keep applying or putting a basic photo arrangement, mixing some horizontals with some vertical photo options. And then for the titles here, I went ahead and I had some leftover pieces of chevron. So I've gone ahead and am using those for title pieces, title clusters. So using some stickers that came with, as part of the collection. And I had just this Make It Beautiful piece there. And I grabbed one of the leaf embellishments and have that layered in. I thought that was really pretty. I'm using that bold chunky pattern here that isn't present in my stripes, just as something a little bit different. And I have another piece of that. These were just extra pieces that I had cut. And some more of the leaf embellishments. I picked up this chunky flower. And I've got 2 of the stickers that kind of complement. This one says make it beautiful, and this one just says family memories. So it just kind of complements. And there you can see it's a nice set of the 3 clusters. The the photo cluster here in the corner, I could of course mix this up by using some smaller photos, use a square photo. But it's kind of nice that these little title clusters kind of, you know, tie the 3 photos together on each side. And one of the things I really liked about this particular layout and what I did is, for me, it kind of modernized a little bit of Art Nouveau. It's a little bit of the collection itself can get very iconic of the era. And you know, I didn't want it to feel a really heavy, dark, deep. I wanted to lighten it up. It had this really fun, lighter tonal paper. But that paper is, that white paper was a little bit more of a challenge, I thought, to kind of work into the collection itself. But this actually worked out really well using these nice modern bold chevrons across the middle. We're using, you know, kind of with letting the colors of the papers come through, not so much focus on the patterns themselves. So I hope you have a chance to give it a try. You could easily do this layout with any of the collections. You can mix and match scraps, just have a fun time with the mixing and matching the colors. Maybe you could do a monochromatic and anything. The paper is probably going to work a little bit better than the cardstock. Our designer paper folds a little bit better than cardstock. So I would definitely try it with designer paper first. So if you give a chance, give it a try. I would love to see what you create. Thanks.